She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip. This dame probably virtue signals on the toilet. But that's not the point here. While everybody else was trying to figure out how to survive as the government told us that breathing in public could kill us, Sunny was lolling around in her big house clicking on pictures of arugula while mixing Cocoa Puffs into her Haagen-Dazs. Oh, the oppression. I wonder if she wiped down the groceries herself or had her...
Everyone missed the real story, except Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld, who saw straight through Sunny Hostin's TV smile and ripped the curtain down like a plot twist no one ordered. Rogan brought the brain bombs, Gutfeld brought the giggles, and together they turned her polished persona into a pile of punchlines. 1 minute she's dishing hot takes on The View, the next she's scrambling for the exit like someone flipped the teleprompter upside down. What did they reveal? Oh, Sunny's forecast just turned stormy.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies-infested hen house.
and at the same time, it seemed like the most interesting part was their audience seemed to be on.
Oh, it's almost weird how Sunny Hostin can find the most incorrect take in any situation, like it's some kind of Olympic sport. Honestly, if clueless confidence were a marketable skill, she'd be Forbes' Woman of the Year. But here's the real kicker. Somehow, in a world filled with experts, economists, cultural historians, and people with 2 working brain cells to rub together, Sunny manages to yell the loudest while making the least amount of sense. Enter Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld, 2 men who took one look at Hostin's latest greatest hits reel of televised nonsense and decided enough was enough.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners.
Rogan, who has spoken to everyone from neuroscientists to flat earthers without combusting from the sheer contrast in IQ, seemed genuinely perplexed that someone could turn being wrong into a full-time broadcast gig. Sunny Hostin has this unshakable habit of speaking in moral absolutes, as if she's standing on a mountaintop, handing out commandments to the rest of us unwashed masses. And Greg Gutfeld? That man practically salivated at the opportunity to swan dive into the volcano of her hypocrisy.
Yeah, I saw you on The View.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days.
Yeah, is that annoying?
No.
No?
No, I mean, it's just... When I was on there, I really had no idea how it was going to land with the audience. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack.
Let's start with the Sunny Hostin time warp, the parallel universe where she lives. In this strange land, speaking over everyone else while accusing them of silencing women is considered activism. It's a magical realm where personal responsibility is oppression, and smugness is a virtue. According to her, disagreeing with her logic means you're either a bigot, a misogynist, or somehow funded by big hatred. Meanwhile, her daily goal appears to be converting every panel discussion into an interpretive dance of self-righteous rage.
Took the news, roll it.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess
Joe Rogan called it exactly what it is: weaponized narcissism dressed up as woke commentary. Here's a woman who, on live national television, tried to rebrand middle-class Americans as closeted oppressors. She acts like eating at Applebee's is a hate crime. She once suggested that rural Americans shouldn't vote unless they could pronounce bourgeoisie without choking on irony. Rogan didn't need to do much. He just held up the mirror, and Sunny recoiled from it like it was a subpoena.
that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Greg Gutfeld, meanwhile, didn't just bring a mirror. He brought a megaphone, a spotlight, and a sarcasm-fueled bulldozer. Watching him unpack her contradictions was like watching someone slowly peel an onion and realize it's made entirely of recycled Twitter threads and indignation. Her political commentary has all the nuance of a toddler learning about taxes. Loud, confused, and devastatingly off base. Greg didn't need to roast her. She practically set herself on fire and walked into a wind tunnel of truth. One of the most comical things Sunny's ever done, aside from calling her own colleagues dangerous extremists for suggesting basic common sense, is declaring herself a voice for the voiceless, while hogging airtime on one of the most mainstream shows in daytime television. You know, because it's really hard to get your opinions out there when you're contractually obligated to shout them 5 days a week before noon. Rogan, in one of his classic slow burn takedowns, just shook his head like a disappointed dad watching his kid microwave aluminum. He didn't need theatrics. He simply noted how someone can live in a coastal mansion, fly private, and still pretend to be oppressed. If victimhood were a timeshare, Sunny would be a platinum tier member with beachfront guilt access.
That show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre...
Greg Gutfeld, on the other hand, performed a full surgical dissection of her logic, if you can call it logic. He laid out, with painful precision, the greatest hits of Hostin's unintentional comedy. Like the time she suggested that certain opinions shouldn't be platformed, while simultaneously using her platform to scream that into the void. That's like arguing against junk food with a cheeseburger in each hand. Greg didn't pull punches. He gave her the full roast treatment, brisket style, slow and sizzling. Sunny's worldview, if you can call it that, is like a broken GPS that constantly reroutes you toward the cliffs of insanity. Everything is a problem. Everyone is a threat. And somehow, she is always the solution. Never mind that she once argued basic math was problematic because it didn't account for lived experiences. Yes, you heard that right, she tried to cancel arithmetic. Rogan almost choked laughing when someone reminded him of that gem. According to him, if feelings are math now, then 2 + 2 equals my truth, and gravity should apologize. Rogan's ability to roast someone without raising his voice is what makes it so devastating. He doesn't even need to insult her. He just repeats her points back slowly, like he's explaining quantum physics to a turtle. And somehow, that's 10 times worse than a shout-fest. Meanwhile, Gutfeld was off to the races with Sunny's magical ability to twist every cultural issue into an unrecognizable pretzel of contradictions. She can take a discussion about school lunches and find a way to blame systemic oppression. Greg described it like watching someone try to defuse a bomb with a blender. Chaotic, loud, and ending with everyone crying.
That means it's time for...
Living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sunny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim. If you want a show where people know the host is stupider than you, then set your DVR to watch Sunny Hostin on The View.
Nicely done.
Then there's the classic Hostin humblebrag, where she lectures America about inequality while casually referencing her vacation home and Ivy League education. She tells us she's just like us, while sipping custom oat milk lattes and tweeting about the struggle from a yacht. Gutfeld basically turned this contradiction into a Broadway musical. He even gave it a name, The Privileged Prophet, A Sunny Tale. And let's not forget her greatest achievement, claiming moral superiority in a group that includes Joy Behar. That's like being the designated driver at a demolition derby. Rogan compared her to a fortune cookie rewritten by Tumblr, vague, self-righteous, and somehow allergic to nuance. Greg wasn't done though. He pointed out the irony of Hostin criticizing misinformation while being a walking Wikipedia of unverified outrage. She's the kind of person who reads one headline, misremembers it, and then spends the next week shouting it as gospel truth while accusing others of not doing the research. Greg likened it to bringing a kazoo to a symphony and insisting your first chair violin. At one point, Sunny even said that people who disagree with her don't understand the lived black experience. Rogan, who has interviewed more black thinkers than Sunny has name-dropped on air, simply blinked. The level of unearned moral high ground was so high, NASA could track it from orbit.
Very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
It's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
Yeah.
Greg said it best. Sunny Hostin doesn't want equality, she wants exemption. From criticism, from debate, from consequences. She wants to play a game where she makes the rules, changes them mid-game, and then yells racist if anyone notices. It's like playing Monopoly with a toddler who keeps eating the money and crying when you ask for rent. Sunny Hostin treats discussion like a courtroom where she's the judge, jury, and also the only person allowed to talk. Rogan compared debating her to trying to teach a cat to juggle. Pointless, chaotic, and you end up with scratches. And then there's the victim cosplay, the emotional red carpet where Sunny dramatically unveils her pain whenever she gets pushback. Every disagreement is an attack. Every question is violence. Every sarcastic joke is deeply problematic. Gutfeld roasted this so hard it should have come with marshmallows. He described her as the human version of a fire alarm that only goes off when someone uses logic. Rogan, with his classic low-key savagery, just noted that if Sunny had her way, podcasts would be banned, books would come with sensitivity footnotes, and every dinner conversation would require a fact-checker and a therapist. He said, "In Sunny's world, intellectual diversity is dangerous, but echo chambers are safe spaces." And it's not just politics. Oh no, Sunny's got hot takes on science too. This is the woman who once implied that biology needed to be re-evaluated because it didn't consider the emotional impact of facts. Greg Gutfeld had a field day with that one, calling it the academic equivalent of eating crayons and blaming the menu.
Oh, I'm gonna milk this till the end of time. You're right, anytime she says something stupid, I'm gonna go, slave owner! Exactly, because if she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them? And it is funny, she is so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
In what universe does someone think you can challenge science by tweeting about feelings? Sunny does. And if you dare ask for a source, she'll accuse you of tone policing while lighting your credibility on fire. Gutfeld suggested her next book should be titled Gaslight, the memoir, complete with a foreword written in all caps. Rogan's final roast came down to one damning observation. Sunny isn't having conversations. She's holding ideological hostage negotiations. Disagree, and you're evil. Question, and you're cancelled. Laugh, and you're branded a threat to democracy. It's an environment so sterile even bacteria would get offended. Sunny Hostin's television legacy won't be her eloquence or insight. It'll be the sheer volume of unintentional comedy she produced while trying to sound profound. Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld just held up the mirror, and it turns out the emperor wasn't wearing clothes. She was just wrapped in righteous indignation and hoping nobody would notice the hypocrisy peeking out from under the hemline. They didn't just destroy Sunny Hostin, they audited her worldview, exposed the bouncing checks of logic, repossessed her moral high ground, and left behind only a pile of soundbites drenched in contradictions. And they did it all while laughing, because sometimes, the only way to handle absurdity is to mock it into submission. And for those keeping score at home, that's 2 podcast mics, 1 Fox News mug, 0 rebuttals, and a Sunny disposition completely turned to shade.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
You see, she'll complain about tone, then follow it up with the emotional equivalent of a sledgehammer wrapped in smugness. Gutfeld noted she's the only person who could make Sunshine feel condescending, like a glare disguised as a compliment. Their takedown wasn't personal, it was structural. They took apart her ideological scaffolding point by shaky point. When someone builds their credibility entirely on outrage and buzzwords, it only takes a light breeze of common sense to bring the whole tower crashing down. At the end of the day, Sunny Hostin's arguments don't collapse under pressure, they evaporate under scrutiny. Rogan and Gutfeld didn't destroy her with venom or vitriol. They used a far more powerful weapon, clarity. And in Sunny's